Wind is a vertical movement that likes to move from high to low pressure. And it likes to move from high to low pressure because in the high pressure there are so many air molecules that it just feels crowded, so it wants to go to the low pressure where there's not as much. So in the northern hemisphere on the top left hand you have a high pressure, and you can see that the air is moving out in a clockwise circle. And in the low pressure system, you see that the air is moving into it at a counterclockwise circle. In the bottom half of it, in the southern hemisphere on the low pressure side, you can see the air moving in at a clockwise circle. And then in the high pressure movement, you see air going out towards the low pressure movement in a counterclockwise movement. Next, we will talk about the Coriolis effect. So, as we talked about previously, air moves at a vertical straight line from low pressure to high pressure. No, from high pressure to low pressure. So, with the Coriolis effect, it has to do with how the Earth is rotating at all times. So, what it does is it curves the air basically. So, you can see on the screen how there's those two curved arrows. Well, that's because the air is starting to curve because of the Coriolis effect and the rotation of the Earth. So with the Coriolis effect, eventually in the upper regions of the air, it starts pulling the air. It'll start out going from high to low pressure zones, and then eventually the Coriolis effect will pull that air and it'll start turning, and it keeps turning until it is parallel with the isobars. And when it does this, it'll stay like this, and the air will just be parallel, the wind will just be parallel with that, and these winds are called geospheric winds. In a high pressure system, the air flows then outward, so it makes the air come down and you get calm, clear weather. Well, in a low pressure one, the wind goes inward, which so it rises and it makes it an unstable pressure. So this is where you get like your tornadoes, your bad weather. A high pressure is an anticyclone, and then a low pressure is a cyclone. So on the westerlies south of the equator, the air is moving downwards, so that would be a low pressure zone. So in this area, and in like the northeast trade winds area, you're gonna have a low pressure zone as well as on the top of the pole. In the northern hemisphere, you're gonna have these low pressure zones because the wind is, or high pressure zones because the wind is blowing down, so you're not gonna have much rain in these areas. In the westerlies above the equator in the northern hemisphere, and in the southwest trade winds, and on the polar in the bottom of the southern hemisphere, these winds are moving up. So in these areas, you're going to have a lot of rain, and you're going to have a lot of just unstable weather because the wind is moving up. So that way, it causes storms and things like that.